All right, let's dive right in. Welcome back, everyone. Today, we are breaking down a highly tactical preview of the upcoming August 28th clash between the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and the Jacksonville Jaguars. If you are the kind of fan who loves getting into the weeds, really digging into the structural X's and O's of the game and seeing how these tactical blueprints collide, well, you're in the perfect place. We are completely skipping the generic talking points today. Instead, we're looking at the exact specific conditions both of these teams need to execute to control the gridiron.
But okay, let's address the elephant in the room right out of the gate. How exactly do you preview a game when there is zero verified regular season data? I mean, we can't just rely on last year's 2025 narratives to prove 2026 offensive identities or coaching tendencies or even defensive quality. It just doesn't work that way. So rather than inventing facts or guessing about the rosters, we have to look at conditional tactical paths. Basically, we're analyzing what absolutely has to happen schematically for either side to seize control of this game.
So here is our roadmap for today. We're going to cover the matchup context, the first trench battle, quarterbacks versus coverages, third down and pace, live in-game cues, and finally the model verdict and probabilities.
Section 1, the matchup context. Let's take a macro view of what both sides conditionally need to pull off to dictate the flow.
Now, what's really fascinating here is the direct contrast in objectives. It's like a giant chess match. Look at Jacksonville. Their absolute primary path to victory is early down efficiency. They desperately need protection that doesn't force them to scrap their route concepts, and they need just enough rushing success to keep their play-action game credible. On the flip side, look at Tampa Bay's defensive blueprint. Their entire goal is to force Jacksonville into highly predictable passing situations, and they want to do it without over-committing rushers. They're aiming to create pressure with a light box, which means they can drop extra numbers into coverage and just totally exploit that leverage.
To properly track who is actually winning that chess match on game day, we need to focus on specific metrics, especially EPA per play, expected points added, and success rate. EPA measures the true value created by a play, while success rate tells us if a play meaningfully improved the down and distance. And I cannot emphasize this enough. Sustainable efficiency is just infinitely more valuable than a single flashly 20-yard gain. I mean, sure, a massive explosive play is great for the highlight reel, but an offense that repeatedly gets stuck behind schedule, they're going to remain incredibly vulnerable. Moving on to Section 2, the first trench battle. With our big picture context set, let's zoom in on our very first micro-tactical duel, the Jacksonville offensive line squaring off against the Tampa Bay defensive front.
Make no mistake, this battle in the trenches is going to be fierce. Now, since we don't have verified personnel deployments yet, we aren't obsessing over individual blocker versus rusher matchups. Instead, we are looking for process signals. We're talking about run stuffs for zero gain, yards generated before contact, and line movement on double teams. Most importantly, keep an eye on how often Jacksonville is forced to keep extra protectors back in the backfield. The absolute core issue here isn't just raw rushing attempts. It's about whether the line is creating manageable down and distances so the offense can actually deploy its full arsenal of pass catchers.
If Tampa Bay can successfully execute this specific three-step sequence, they're going to gain massive leverage. Step 1, stop the run without stacking the box. Step 2, hurry the quarterback using just a base four-man rush. If they pull that off, well, Step 3 unlocks completely. Their safeties are suddenly totally freed up to stay over the top and completely eliminate explosive routes. Jacksonville's absolute best counter to this is to run the ball efficiently without sacrificing eligible receivers, rapidly identify the pressure, and use built-in hot answers to totally disrupt Tampa Bay's rhythm.
Section 3, quarterbacks versus coverages. Let's flip the field now and look at how Tampa Bay's passing attack matches up against Jacksonville's secondary and their pressure schemes.
For Tampa Bay, the name of the game is maintaining a clean pocket and hitting catchable, early down throws to move the chains before they even sniff a third down. Jacksonville, of course, wants to make that a complete nightmare. So what do we chart here? We need to watch Jacksonville's pre-snap shell disguises and their post-snap rotations. Are they sitting in a two-high look or rotating down to single-high? We also have to track their blitz and simulated pressure frequency. Jacksonville's tactical goal is to force Tampa Bay into sustaining these incredibly long, punishing drives by rallying to tackle the first completion immediately, before it turns into anything explosive.
So how we interpret the outcomes of these passing plays is absolutely vital. Turnovers can be incredibly fluky in a one-game sample. A defense that earns contested, long-yardage throws and constantly creates hurried decisions, late reads, and tipped passes, they deserve way more credit than a defense that just happens to fall on a lucky fumble. We really have to separate sustainable, repeatable process from volatile, one-off highlights.
All right, Section 4, third down and pace.
This brings us perfectly to the hidden variables that literally always separate teams in a close contest: high leverage downs and the speed of play. And this brilliantly illustrates why looking solely at a team's third down conversion percentage is pretty much entirely misleading. You have to look at the required distance. A team living in 3rd and 2, they retain their run options, their quick game answers, and they have the flexibility to be super aggressive on 4th down. But a team stuck in 3rd and 9, that completely exposes the quarterback to elevated sack risks, coverage-induced throwaways, and highly risky turnover-worthy decisions. The distance literally dictates the playbook.
Beyond just down and distance, we have to talk about pace and field position. Now, pace has to be observed live. You cannot assume it from last year's data. We'll be measuring neutral game state seconds between snaps, and importantly, how an offense responds right after an incompletion. Faster pace can mean more possessions, sure, but if it just leads to a quick 3-and-out punt, it's totally counterproductive. And when it comes to the red zone, look, a touchdown off a turnover-generated short field does not prove an offense has magically solved their opponent. The truly repeatable signals are whether they can generate red zone entries through ordinary methodical drives and avoid negative plays once the field compresses.
Section 5. Live in-game cues. Let's see how all of this builds into a conditional matrix for reading the game live as it unfolds during those critical first 30 minutes. Consider this your live in-game cheat sheet. In the first quarter, separate out those first 2 non-garbage possessions. For Jacksonville, your positive cue is efficient standard down plays and a highly protected quick decision passing game. For Tampa Bay, it's repeated early down completions. Now, if the Jaguars jump out to an early lead, they absolutely must retain their play action and avoid automatically running into negative plays, because that would just gift Tampa Bay those predictable pass scenarios we talked about. If the Bucs take the lead, Jacksonville has to avoid the trap of indiscriminately rushing their tempo right after a sack or an incompletion. Early leads are only durable if they are backed by repeatable processes.
But what if it's deadlocked at 0-0, or just a really tight one-score game at 60 minutes? Honestly, throw all those broad pregame expectations right out the window. If it gets late and close, the game is going to be decided by this specific checklist. Who has the remaining timeout inventory? Who holds the net field position advantage? The team that has been consistently creating shorter third downs all game long is going to have the far more flexible closing script. 4th down conversion thresholds and kicker conditions will completely eclipse any broader statistical expectations at that point.
Section 6. Model verdict and probabilities. Transitioning into our final section, let's take a look at the fixture-specific model estimates based on the rigorous conditional analysis we've just laid out. Because Jacksonville is the nominal home team here, they do hold a very slight edge in our baseline model. The probabilities currently shake out to a 53% chance of a Jacksonville win, a 46% chance for Tampa Bay, and just a 1% chance for a regulation tie or draw. On top of that, the model actually assigns roughly a 6% probability of this game pushing into overtime. So as you can see, it is incredibly tight. And that brings us directly to the baseline model estimate for the final score: Jacksonville 23, Tampa Bay 21, leaving us with a total of 44 points. To put that into perspective, this score implies roughly 10 to 11 meaningful possessions per team under ordinary NFL pacing. Jacksonville's narrow edge here is entirely contingent on them successfully avoiding those early down negative plays and essentially preventing Tampa Bay from winning that absolutely crucial pressure versus protection battle we mapped out earlier.
Now, before we wrap up, I absolutely have to lay out a critical sports analytics disclaimer. We currently have no verified 2026 regular season player data available. Active rosters, snap counts, and injury designations are totally unverified. We also lack confirmed stadium, weather, and market context. This baseline relies heavily on a generic NFL prior. Because the only defensible pregame position right now is uncertainty, absolutely no pregame spread, total, or player prop bets can be mathematically recommended based on this conditional baseline. Remember, these are structural estimates, not guarantees.
Which leaves us with one final defining question to ponder. Without verified rosters or current regular season data, which team's conditional tactical blueprint is going to dictate the terms of engagement first? Is it going to be Jacksonville dominating with early down efficiency, or will Tampa Bay's light box pressure completely derail them? Thank you so much for joining me today for this overview. Keep your eyes glued to the trenches and those all-important early downs on game day, because I promise you that is exactly where this battle is going to be won. Until next time, keep analyzing and enjoy the matchup.